Hey guys, I'm back again. After a little bit of a break, it was crazy around here between work and a few other new projects that I had to do, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But I was reading, believe it or not, amongst all of this. So I'm here today to talk to you about the Booktube prize. So I judged the last round, which was in April and May. And yeah, I keep thinking every year I'm going to get a better group. I'm going to be happy. And it's never happening. But I guess that's what it is to be a judge for a book prize. So first, let's talk about how I go about judging these books, because the idea is to rate the books from 1 to 6. Okay, and we're talking about fiction. I'm doing it in the fiction section. You're meant to rate the books from 1 to 6, meaning 1 being the best book and 6 being the least favorite of the 6. And that globalizes actually ranking the books, and it's really not something that I find easy to do. So what I've done is I have a system. It's the same system I used last year. I have my characteristics. I have my book journal to remind me of everything. So I use 6 characteristics, which I judge each characteristics out from 1 to 5 stars, and then afterwards I just do an average, and that gives me the rating of the book. So the first characteristic is character development, the second is writing style, the third is pacing, the fourth is readability, the fifth is premise and execution, and the sixth is what I recommended. Now, I started reading in April because I started in April because I said, oh, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to read like 4 books in April. Girl, I did not read 4 books in April. I only read 2 in April. So I started with this one right here, which is called Writers and Lovers. And that's by Lily King. And this one, I don't know. I wasn't really sure what I was going to expect from that book. But I wasn't moved by it. I wasn't excited by it, and I wasn't engrossed by it. It's not a bad book. It's just not my cup of tea. That's not the kind of book that moves me. So I read it in April. I think it might have been like maybe second or third week of April. I read it in quite a few days because it's not very long, but I didn't really get into it like that. So in the end, I wound up rating it a 2.5. So yeah, that's how it started. All right. So then that month passed. Days passed, and I got towards, I think it might have been either the end of April. Yeah, I think it was like somewhere around the end of April, and I said, girl, you better stop playing and get to these books, So I decided to read a second book. That one was this one right here, which is called The Glass Hotel by Hilary St. John Mandel. And this is another book. I was like, I don't know if this is really my cup of tea. I haven't read her books before. But I do remember hearing lots of people talk about Station 11 and how good it was. But I didn't read Station 11. I wasn't checking for Station 11 like that. So I decided to read this one. Okay, so when I read Writers and Lovers, I read it on Kindle. And when I read The Glass Hotel, I read it on Kindle. Now, your girl liked The Glass Hotel. There was something about this book that I found just intriguing and interesting the way she went about telling this story about this Ponzi scheme and this brother and this sister. I kind of liked it. I don't know. I guess maybe because it was really different than what I expected. I mean, I knew there was going to be a Ponzi scheme, but as I was reading, I was like, how's she going to put a Ponzi scheme in here, you know? But she did it, and she did it really well. I thought it was a very interesting take on this whole Ponzi scheme thing and this relationship between this brother and sister. Yeah, I quite like this one. I was in, you know, and I read it quite quickly because I kept wanting to see what was going to happen next. So that one I wound up rating it a 3.58 stars. And yeah, just an interesting way to talk about, you know, the effects of business on everyday people, business and finance, and, you know, how people want to, you know, double their money if possible. They want to, you know, invest so they can, you know, get a lot of money quickly because they all are in positions where it's very important that they have, you know, money, you know, as a cushion because of their situations, and how this Ponzi scheme gets out of hand and how it affects everybody, even the people that are not investing. So yeah, I thought it was really good. It, you know, gives us a little touch on society's problems and things. I quite liked it. Yeah, you know, I liked it. So next, you know how it is. May shows up like a flash, and suddenly I realized, oh crap, you have 4 books to read from the Booktube prize. You also have your Patreon book to read and a book club book to read the same month. So I was like, oh crap. I started panicking then. So we first get to the beginning of the month of May. So I think it was around, yeah, it was maybe around the same time where I got my second injection of COVID vaccine. And it was a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So I was literally out of commission Friday and Saturday just because I had like a serious fatigue and I wasn't able to concentrate when reading. I didn't have any other, you know, I wasn't feeling like I didn't have any fever or anything weird like that. I just had a lot of tiredness, and I had a mild headache on Saturday. So I could not read for 2 days. So when I woke up on Sunday, I was like, okay, I'm right as rain. I was like normal. So I said, let me just, you know, get onto these books. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble with Robert. So I decided to then pick up this one right here, which is Real Life by Brandon Taylor. And I read this one in 1 day. That's how easy it is to read. I'm not mad at his writing style. I just wasn't overly invested in his character Wallace. So this is a story that talks about a black gay man, young man, who's studying at a university. I think it's supposed to be Iowa. And it's, of course, predominantly white. And he is in the science section getting his master's or something like that. And we basically follow Wallace and his interactions and relationships with his friends and the people in which he works with in the laboratory, or that he collaborates with in the laboratory. And it is like, this man knows how to write microaggressions. I mean, he did it really, really well. Because I think if you're a black person and you read this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, he's got his finger on the pulse of what it is to be subjected to microaggressions on a daily basis. Now, the other thing about this story that didn't really get me, I guess it's because I already know what microaggressions are. I've had them happen to me, so I don't need to read a book to find out what that's like. So I kind of felt like this book was more geared towards people who don't know what that's like. Because that subtlety of it and the way that it kind of happens and nobody notices anything and how nobody says anything. He writes that really well, but in essence, there wasn't much else in the story that grabbed me. His relationship with the friend who is not saying that he's gay. He's sort of like gay. So he's like a dude on the down low. That relationship was a bit disturbing and weird. But as a whole, this book isn't bad. It just didn't wow me, okay? After evaluating, having read it for a day, I read it in a day, and then giving thought to it for 2 days, it also came out with 3.58 stars, just like The Glass Hotel. Yeah, that shit happens sometimes. So then I said, okay, where am I going to move on to from there with the Booktube Prize books? So the logic was to go to this one, which is Persesi by Susanna Clark. This one I also read in one day because it's super short. This book is only 244 pages and the words are really big on the page. Not something that you really have to drag on for days to read. So I read this one not knowing a damn thing of what it's about, and I'm not prepared to say too much about the plot, because this is the kind of book where you start talking about the plot and you might just give everything away. So I'm just going to say this book begins with a man who's called Persesi, who is in a world that seems extremely vast and unconventional. That's all I'm going to say. And it's through his eyes that we're going to embark on this story. I guess you can say it's part adventure, part fantasy. Yeah, something like that. The book is extremely well written. I think the best parts of the book for me were the first 30%, which is where there's a lot of description of this world that we're in, that we're literally thrust into this world. Those descriptions are fantastic. You really do get a sense of what the place is like, and you're trying to imagine, at least that's what I was doing. I was trying to imagine what this place was really like. So, yeah. Now, did I enjoy it? Yeah, sorta, kinda. But it kinda left me a little nonplussed, because I pretty much didn't really care. And I cannot for the life of me describe or explain to you why. I want to say because I feel like the character, we don't know him that well. And I feel like that's what's missing. Because I think if I knew the character better, that would allow me to have some kind of feeling or connection to him. Whereas I was reading Persesi and I wasn't having a connection with him. I was just reading about what was happening to him. And that was it. So this one I rated a 3.3 stars. Yeah. So for me, that is a good rating, 3.3 stars. 3 stars is a good book for me. It's just that I wasn't wowed by this book. And I feel like if it wasn't on the Booktube prize list, I never would have picked this book up. Just to be honest, I would have never picked it up. Because it just doesn't sound like something that is like in my, in the kind of things that I like to read. So yeah. Okay, next on my list, I decided to read this one, which is The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. Okay, now this one right here, this one was really quite good. And it also wasn't exactly what I thought, because I only heard that it was about an influenza pandemic in Dublin 1918. So I said, okay, Dublin 1918 pandemic, great, I got to read about a pandemic. But I like this author, Emma Donoghue. I think she's a very good writer. So I was, pretty gung-ho for it. And it is a book that I had previously said before the Booktube prize that I wanted to read, but never got around to it. So here we are. I decided to get the book, and this is a beautiful hardcover. I started reading the book, and I cannot put it down. I think I read this one in a day or two. I can't remember, like a day and a morning or something like that. So good. It's another fairly short book. It's under 300 pages, if I'm not mistaken. It's just like a 291 or something like that. But this story focuses on a nurse called Julia. I think that is her name. Yeah. Her name is Julia Power. And she's a nurse, and she has to take care of pregnant women who come in who are showing signs of influenza. So she winds up being stationed in this little tiny ass room at the end of the hallway or something. And it literally, you have no room to swing a cat around in this place. And she starts, and she has like one woman that comes in, then another one comes in. And with each woman that comes in, you're seeing the connection between her as a nurse having to tend to these patients on her own. And then she has an assistant that comes and helps her. But baby, you got to get your mind right for these pregnancy scenes, because when you have the delivery scenes, they are described to the detail. So if you're the kind of person that's squeamish or just like a little bit, like that about reading medical procedures, then you might want to give this one a miss, because that's the majority of the book. It's about these different women in their pregnancy situations and trying to deliver their babies. And you see how at that time period, the women are still not really sure about certain aspects of delivery and where babies are, come from, that kind of situation. And then there's, difficult births, but it's really, really good. There's like one little thing at the end of the story, like I guess you could say the last 20%. I was just kind of like, not very realistic, or not what seemed a little bit too fast for that part of the book. But other than that, this is a really, really good book. This is a book that I really highly recommend. Really, really good. And I wind up giving it 3.9 stars. So yeah, this one right here, this is a good one right here. So last but not least on my list was the famous Shuggie Bain. Okay, now this book, I said when it came out, I said, okay, I'll get to it, but it's not a priority. That's what I said to myself when it came out last year. And as you can see, it won the 2020 Man Booker Prize last year. So everybody knows this is about Shuggie Bain, and this is about Shuggie, who is the last child left at home He actually has an older brother and an older sister, but they have found ways to escape their terrible poverty and their alcoholic mother. And Shugi is the only one that's left, and he seems to be the only one who wants to take care of his mother and be there for his mother. So this story focuses on that relationship, but also viewing the family difficulty through the alcoholism of the mother, through living in poverty, through this whole idea of the mother trying to, get over her alcoholism. It's a very emotional, tense, traumatic story. I'm not gonna lie, you got to get your mind right. I mean, in the beginning when I was reading, my mouth was dropped. I was like, what? Yeah. So you got to get your mind right if you're going to read this one. And be that as it may, though, I'm going to say the book is very well written. This man, he can write. It's very well written, and he writes the Scottish dialect really, really well. I got a little bit of the audio through parts of it to get me used to this dialect, because I was reading it, but I couldn't really hear it in my head properly. So with the help of reading and listening simultaneously, I got that. I got the switch flipped in my head, and I got with that Scottish twang. Okay? So that's like the most difficult thing, I think, to understand with the book is some of the Scottish language. I even had to Google some of the expressions because it's like, I don't know this word. I don't know what it means. This book was really, really good. Like, I gave this one a 4.75 stars. That's how much I liked it. So in the end, my 1 through 6 was like this. In 6th place, we had Writers and Lovers. In 5th place, we had Persesi. In 4th place, we had Real Life. In 3rd place, I put The Glass Hotel. In 2nd place, I put The Pull of the Stars. And of course, in 1st place, I put Shugi Bane. So, now, I'm sure you've all seen the video, and if you haven't seen the video from Robert, where he talks about the 3 top books from this particular group. So I was not totally off, but I was off by 1 book. So the top 3 that were kept from this group were Shugi Bane, The Pull of the Stars, Writers and Lovers. So yeah, your girl was off by 1 book this time. Last time I had it spot on. So that is my experience with the Booktube prize. I highly recommend you try it at least once to do this judging of the books. I think it puts really reading into perspective and makes you look at books slightly differently than the way we look at books normally when we're reading. It makes us be more critical, and it also makes us read things we wouldn't normally pick up, and I think that can be a good thing sometimes. This time it didn't really work for me, except it did because I discovered Hilary St. John Mandel with The Glass Hotel, a little bit with Persesi, but like I said, it wasn't really all that. Although I would like to read her first book. I think I even may have that one, because I think that one might be more interesting for me. But anyway, I think it's a good idea to try this. So comment below and tell me what you think about this prize and what you think about my choices. And I'll be back with another video real soon. Bye bye.